The
Hello
first
everyone,
sensation was not
and
pain,
welcome to
but
my
weight.
General Hospital official
A
channel. We
profound,
hope
leaden
everyone
weight
is
that
having
seemed
a
to pin him to
wonderful
the
day.
mattress, as
Before
if the
we
very air in
begin,
the room
please
had
hit the
solidified
subscribe
and
button
settled
and give
upon his
this video a
chest.
thumbs up.
Ned Quartermain's eyelids fluttered, not with the gentle ease of waking from a restful sleep, but with the sluggish, sticky resistance of someone emerging from a deep and troubled unconsciousness. There was a faint, antiseptic smell, undercut by the sterile scent of laundered sheets. A low, rhythmic beeping provided a monotonous soundtrack to his confusion. He tried to move his hand, to push back the oppressive weight, but his limbs refused the command. They felt distant, disconnected, like tools that no longer belonged to him. A low groan escaped his lips, a sound that was raw and unfamiliar even to his own ears. "Ned? Ned, can you hear me?" The voice was soft, feminine, laced with a concern that felt both genuine and practiced. He knew that voice. It was the anchor in the murky sea of his disorientation. He forced his eyes open, the world swimming into view as a blur of soft, neutral colors and a halo of blonde hair. "Lois," he rasped, his throat parched and aching. "No, sweetheart, it's Olivia." The voice clarified, and the face above him sharpened into focus. Olivia Falconeri, his wife, her beautiful features etched with worry lines that seemed new and deep. Her hand found his, her grip warm and solid, a tether to reality. "You're in the hospital. You're okay. You took a nasty fall." A fall. The words echoed in the hollow chamber of his mind. He tried to grasp the memory, to pull it into the light, but it was like trying to catch smoke. There were only fragments. A rooftop. The wind whipping his suit jacket. An argument. Raised voices. A sense of vertigo, not just physical, but moral. Then, nothing. A great, black chasm of nothingness. "How long?" he managed to ask, each word an effort. 3 days, Olivia said, her thumb stroking the back of his hand. "You gave us all a terrible scare. The doctors said there was swelling on the brain. They had to put you in a medically induced coma to let it heal. 3 days. Lost. Stolen from his life." He tried to sit up, a fresh wave of dizziness and a throbbing ache in his temple forcing him back down onto the pillows. The pain was beginning to announce itself now, a dull, persistent throb behind his eyes, a sharp twinge in his ribs with every breath. "Easy, Ned. Just take it easy," Olivia soothed. "The doctor is on her way. Everyone's been so worried. Brook Lynn was here all night, Michael and Drew stopped by this morning. Even your mother," she trailed off, a complicated look crossing her face. Tracy Quartermain's brand of concern was always a unique and often stressful experience. Ned closed his eyes, not in sleep, but in an attempt to retreat from the overwhelming influx of information. The names she mentioned, Brook Lynn, Michael, Drew, should have evoked specific feelings, a clear map of his relationships. And they did, but it was a map viewed through a fog. The outlines were there, but the details, the emotional topography, were blurred and indistinct. The door to the room swung open with a soft whoosh, and a woman in a white coat entered, a tablet in her hand and a calm, professional smile on her face. "Mr. Quartermain. It's good to see you awake. I'm Dr. Collins. How are you feeling?" "Like I was on the losing end of a fight with a freight train," Ned replied, his voice gaining a little strength. "That's not entirely inaccurate," Dr. Collins said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. She began a series of checks, shining a light into his pupils, testing his reflexes, asking him to follow her finger. "The good news is, the swelling has gone down significantly. Your vitals are strong. The fall resulted in a severe concussion, 2 cracked ribs, and a lot of bruising, but you were very lucky. It could have been much, much worse." "Lucky," Ned repeated, the word tasting bitter. He didn't feel lucky. He felt broken and confused. "We need to run a few more tests, of course," the doctor continued. "But the most important thing right now is cognitive rest. Your brain needs time to heal. I want to ask you a few questions, just a standard orientation check. Is that all right?" Ned nodded, a movement that sent a fresh spike of pain through his skull. "Can you tell me your full name?" Edward Quartermain, he said automatically. The name felt solid, a cornerstone. And do you know where you are? General Hospital. Port Charles. Good. And do you know what year it is? He opened his mouth to answer, but the words caught in his throat. The year. It should have been the easiest thing. It was a simple, factual piece of data. But his mind, which had just readily supplied his name and location, now went blank. He saw numbers, years, flipping through his consciousness like pages in a calendar blown by a strong wind. 2022? 2023? He felt a cold prickle of panic. It's... Olivia's grip on his hand tightened. Ned? It's okay, honey. Just think. Dr. Collins' expression remained neutral, but her gaze was sharp, analytical. Take your time. He squeezed his eyes shut, pushing past the panic. He thought of New Year's Eve. Fireworks over the harbor. Olivia in a sequined dress, laughing. It's 2024, he finally said, the words emerging tentatively. That's correct, Dr. Collins said, making a note on her tablet. And can you tell me who the current president of the United States is? That one came more easily, a piece of information pulled from the political debates that often filled the background of the Quartermain mansion. He answered, and she nodded, moving on. Now, this might be a little more challenging. Do you remember what you were doing just before your fall? What led to the accident? This was the question he had been dreading. He focused, trying to push through the fog, to scale the walls of the black chasm. The rooftop. The wind. The argument. He could feel the ghost of the emotions, anger, betrayal, a desperate, righteous fury. But the cause, the subject of the argument, remained shrouded. He could see a face, contorted in anger, but the features were indistinct, a smudge of color and shadow. I was on the roof of the Metro Court, he said slowly, the memory of the location surfacing with sudden clarity. I was arguing with someone. It was intense. I remember feeling so angry. And then, a push? A shove? I lost my balance. He looked from the doctor to Olivia, his eyes pleading for confirmation. Was I pushed? Olivia's face paled. She exchanged a quick, guarded look with the doctor. The police, they're still investigating, Ned. There were no witnesses. They found you on the pavement below the rooftop terrace. They don't know if you fell, or if, she couldn't finish the sentence. Dr. Collins stepped in, her tone deliberately calming. Memory loss surrounding a traumatic event is very common, Mr. Quartermain. It's called retrograde amnesia. The brain's way of protecting itself from the shock. It may come back in pieces, or all at once, or not at all. The most important thing is not to force it. Let it happen naturally. She gave a few more instructions about rest and hydration and left the room, leaving Ned alone with Olivia and the swirling, terrifying void in his memory. He had been arguing with someone. Someone he knew. Someone who might have tried to kill him. The next few hours were a parade of familiar faces, each one a potential key to the lockbox in his mind. His daughter, Brook, rushed in, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, and threw her arms around him with a careful ferocity, chattering a mile a minute about how scared she'd been, about how Ace had drawn him a get-well picture, about the chaos at deception in his absence. He held her, the love for his daughter a bright, unwavering flame in the fog, but her presence did nothing to illuminate the darkness of the rooftop. Michael and Drew came next, their expressions a mixture of relief and a strange, watchful tension. They talked about ELQ, about a board meeting that had been postponed, about the stock market. Their words were casual, but Ned, a master of reading a room after a lifetime in business and family politics, sensed an undercurrent. They were assessing him, not just as an injured uncle and cousin, but as something else. A variable. A loose end. His mother, Tracy, swept in with her usual imperious energy, criticizing the hospital decor, interrogating the nurses, and declaring that he looked peaky and needed a proper steak, not this hospital gruel. Her brand of love was abrasive, but it was real. Yet, even her forceful presence couldn't dislodge the secret his mind was keeping from him. It was later, when the room was quiet again and Olivia had stepped out to get a coffee, that the first crack appeared. He was staring at the muted television mounted on the wall, the images of a daytime talk show flashing silently. A commercial came on for a local news station, and the anchor's face filled the screen. A serious-looking man with a strong jaw and graying temples. And like a lightning strike, a memory erupted in Ned's mind. Himself, in his office at Crimson, slamming a newspaper down on his desk. The same anchor's face was on the front page, next to a headline about a corruption scandal. Himself, picking up the phone, his voice low and furious. "We need to talk. Now." The rooftop. "No one can hear us there." The memory was vivid, visceral. The feel of the newsprint under his fingers. The cold certainty in his gut. The name of the anchor was John. John Jagger Cates. But that wasn't the secret. Jagger Cates was just a piece of it. A catalyst. The door opened and Olivia returned, holding 2 steaming cups. She saw the look on his face and stopped short. "Ned? What is it? Is it the pain?" "I remember something," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "I was on the phone. I was angry about a story. About Jagger Cates." Olivia's face went carefully blank. She set the coffees down on the bedside table. "Oh? What about it?" "I don't know," Ned admitted, frustration welling up inside him. "It's connected. I know it is. I called someone to meet me on the rooftop because of that story." "Who was it, Olivia? Who did I meet?" He saw it then, a flicker of something in her eyes. Not just worry, but fear. A deep, unsettling fear. She looked away, busying herself with stirring sugar into his coffee. "I don't know, Ned. You didn't tell me. You were very upset that day, secretive. You just said you had to deal with something." He knew she was lying. Not a malicious lie, but a protective one. She was hiding something, something she thought would hurt him. Or perhaps, something she was afraid of. The fragment of memory, instead of bringing clarity, only deepened the mystery. It was a single thread, and when he pulled on it, he felt the entire tapestry of his life begin to unravel. He spent the rest of the day in a state of agitated exhaustion, drifting in and out of a light sleep, his dreams a chaotic montage of falling, shouting, and a secret that danced just out of reach. The following morning, the fog in his mind had receded slightly. The pain was more manageable, and his thoughts felt sharper, less like sludge. Tracy was back, this time with a contraband sandwich from the grill that she insisted he eat. As she fussed around the room, she let a piece of gossip slip, a casual, barbed comment about that nonsense with Drew and the SEC investigation finally being put to rest. Drew. SEC investigation. The words landed not as sound, but as a detonation. The black chasm in his mind didn't just illuminate, it erupted. It wasn't a slow trickle of returning memory. It was a flood, a tsunami that crashed over him, drowning him in a truth so monstrous, so devastating, that for a moment, he forgot how to breathe. The rooftop. The wind, stronger now, howling in his ears. Not Jagger Cates, but another face, clear as day, contorted in a rage that mirrored his own. Drew. You don't understand what you're doing, Ned. Drew yelling, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I understand perfectly. Ned's own voice, ringing with a fury he hadn't felt in years. I understand that you committed a crime. You insider traded, Drew. You used information you got from me, from a vulnerable, confused man who thought you were his friend, and you bought those stocks before the merger was announced. Drew's face, a mask of defiance and panic. It wasn't like that. I was trying to protect the company. To protect the family. Don't you dare hide behind the family. Ned roared, stepping closer, the edge of the rooftop terrifyingly near. You lied to the SEC. You let Carly take the fall for you, and when that wasn't enough, you perjured yourself. You stood in a court of law and you lied. And Michael, my own nephew, he knows, doesn't he? He knows you're guilty and he's been protecting you. The truth of it was sickening. The betrayal was not just Drew's, but Michael's, his own flesh and blood. They had woven a web of lies, and the entire family, the entire city, had been caught in it. They had made a fool of him, of the justice system, of everyone. What are you going to do? Drew asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. What I should have done the moment I figured it out, Ned said, his voice cold and final. I'm going to the district attorney. I'm going to tell them everything. The SEC needs to reopen the case. You are going to prison, Drew, where you belong. He turned to leave, the moral high ground firm beneath his feet. He had to expose this. He had to. It was the only way to salvage any sense of honor, for the family, for himself. And then, a hand on his shoulder, spinning him around. A shove. Not a violent, murderous push, but a desperate, panicked one. Drew's face, a snapshot of shock and horror at his own actions. The loss of balance. The world tilting. The sky and the ground trading places. The sickening, endless fall. He remembered it all. Every single, terrible second. Ned gasped, a ragged, wrenching sound that tore from the depths of his soul. His body went rigid, his hands clutching at the sheets. The heart monitor beside his bed began to beat frantically. Ned! Ned, what's wrong? Tracy cried out, her face a mask of alarm. She rushed to the door. Nurse! Doctor! Somebody! But Ned was beyond hearing. He was back on that rooftop, living the betrayal, the fall, the impact. And he knew. He knew who he had been arguing with. He knew the secret. Drew Kane was guilty of insider trading and perjury. Michael Corinthos knew and was an accessory after the fact. And one of them, in a moment of blind panic, had sent him hurtling from the roof. The room filled with medical staff, a blur of blue scrubs and concerned voices. Dr. Collins was there, her calm demeanor replaced with urgent efficiency. They were asking him questions, but he couldn't form words. The truth was a physical presence inside him, a cancerous growth that had just metastasized. Olivia burst into the room, her face white with fear. What happened? I don't know. Tracy said, her voice trembling. He remembered something, and he started to seize. They were holding him down, a prick in his arm as a sedative entered his system. As the chemical calm began to spread through his veins, dampening the hysteria but not the horrific knowledge, his eyes met Olivia's. And in that look, he saw that she knew. She had always known. She had been protecting him from this very moment, fearing that the truth would break him. The darkness crept in at the edges of his vision, but this time, it was a welcome respite. The last thing he saw was Olivia's tear-filled, terrified eyes, and the last thing he felt was the crushing weight of the secret, now fully revealed, but more terrible than any physical injury. He was awake. He remembered. And the world he was waking up to was a lie, built on a foundation of betrayal by the people he called family. The fall hadn't been the end of his ordeal. It was only the beginning. Ned's eyes fluttered open slowly, as if he were fighting against a weight pressing down on his entire body. The steady beeping of the monitors beside him sounded distant at first, then sharpened into focus. The sterile scent of the hospital filled his senses before anything else did. He blinked again, and the blurry shape hovering over him gradually formed into Olivia, her hands trembling where they clutched the railing of his hospital bed. Her relief was immediate and overwhelming. Ned, oh my God, you're awake. Her voice cracked, half whisper, half sob. Ned swallowed with effort, his throat dry and burning. He tried to speak, but only a rough breath escaped. Olivia rushed to pour him a little water, lifting his head gently. When he finally managed a few sips, he let out an exhausted sigh. Liv, he murmured, voice raspy, what happened? Olivia brushed tears from her eyes. You fell. You hit your head hard, honey. You've been in and out for days. We weren't sure if you'd wake up fully. Ned nodded weakly, but something haunted flickered behind his tired gaze, something Olivia didn't miss. What is it? You remember something, don't you? She asked softly. Before Ned could answer, the door pushed open and Brook Lynn hurried in, followed by Lois and Tracy, each carrying worry in different ways. Brook Lynn gasped at the sight of him awake. Dad! You scared us to death! She rushed to his bedside and took his free hand. Ned squeezed weakly, but his eyes drifted away from hers almost immediately, as though looking at his daughter triggered something difficult he wasn't ready to face. Tracy leaned in, her voice firm but trembling at the edges. Edward Lawrence Quartermain, if you ever pull another stunt like nearly dying on us again, I swear, Ned managed a faint smile. Nice to see you too, Mother. But even as the family surrounded him, something unsettled in his expression made Lois frown. He looks like he's got something on his mind, Lois whispered to Tracy. Tracy narrowed her eyes. He always has something on his mind. The question is whether I'm going to like it. Ned closed his eyes for a moment as if steadying himself, then looked around the room with growing tension. Liv, he murmured, I need a minute alone. Olivia froze. Alone? Ned, if you're in pain we need to call a doctor. I'm not in pain, Ned interrupted softly but firmly. Please. Just give me a moment. Tracy bristled. Absolutely not. If you think for 1 second, Olivia held up a hand. Tracy. He needs space. Brook Lynn looked conflicted but nodded, gently squeezing his hand again. Okay, Dad. But we're right outside. When they left, Olivia lingered beside him. You want me to go too? Ned shook his head immediately. No. You stay. Olivia sat on the edge of his bed, brushing hair from his forehead. Tell me, sweetheart. What's going on? Ned took a slow breath, his fingers trembling as he reached for her hand. There's something I remember. Something I didn't want to remember. Olivia's expression softened with concern. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. But Ned shook his head slightly. Liv, this isn't something you're going to want to hear. Olivia stayed still, her voice gentle. Ned, I stood by you through everything. Just tell me. Ned's breathing hitched, and when he met her eyes, fear lingered in his. I remember the night before the fall, he whispered. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't confused. I wasn't mistaken. Olivia frowned. About what? Ned swallowed hard. About what I saw, about who I overheard. As Olivia leaned in, Ned blinked, and the memory resurfaced behind his eyes like a film unspooling. He had been walking into the Metro Court Garden Terrace, intending to take a call in private, and stopped cold when he heard voices he recognized instantly. He heard people talking about something dangerous, something that could destroy several lives. Olivia squeezed his hand. Who did you hear, Ned? He hesitated, then let the truth slip out in a whisper. It was Nina, and someone else. And what I heard that night wasn't just gossip, it was a plan, Olivia. A plan with huge consequences. Olivia's breath caught. A plan for what? Ned looked away, guilt washing over his features. To destroy someone. To keep a secret buried. To manipulate things at the Metro Court. Olivia stared at him, stunned. Nina? You're sure? Ned nodded painfully. I recognized her voice instantly. And the person with her, he closed his eyes. The other person was Martin. They were talking about keeping something hidden, something they didn't want anyone to connect back to Nina. Olivia's mind raced. Why didn't you say anything before? Ned let out a humorless laugh. Because I didn't want another war. You know how the Quartermains already live in constant battle. I didn't want to start another feud. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't keep it to myself. Then, before I could confront Nina, I fell. Olivia swallowed slowly, trying to piece together what Ned was saying. So you're telling me you heard Nina plotting something that could hurt people, maybe even the family? Ned nodded weakly. Yes. And Martin was advising her. He told her not to come clean. He said the fallout would destroy everything she built. The door cracked open slightly as Lynn peeked in, unable to wait. Is everything okay? Ned forced a small smile. Come in. You should hear this too. Lynn stepped inside hesitantly. What's going on? Ned's expression grew heavier. I need to tell all of you something. Something I should have told you before. Tracy and Lois re-entered the room, each wearing expressions of suspicion. Tracy crossed her arms. If this turns out to be another memory lapse or wild theory, Ned shook his head. It's not. I remember everything clearly now. Lois looked between him and Olivia. What did you remember? Ned took a deep breath. I overheard Nina and Martin talking about a secret she's been hiding. Something that involves more people than she realizes. Something she was terrified would blow up in her face. Tracy rolled her eyes. Nina always has a secret. You'll have to be more specific. Ned hesitated but forced himself to continue. They were discussing someone turning over information to the authorities, information that could ruin a marriage, a business, and someone's reputation in one blow. I think Nina's been covering up a huge betrayal, and Martin's been helping her. Lynn blinked, stunned. Why would Nina be involved in something that serious? What could she possibly be hiding? Ned's voice softened. Something she did. Something she regrets but hasn't corrected. He paused, struggling with the weight of the truth. I think Nina's been hiding evidence that could affect Sunny and Carly. Something that could reopen a wound everyone thought was finally healed. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. You think she did something that would hurt Sunny again? Ned nodded. Yes. And she's terrified of him finding out. Tracy muttered under her breath, of course she is. Sunny Corinthos isn't exactly the forgiving type. Lynn looked shaken. Dad, this could blow up everything. I know, Ned whispered. But there's more. The room fell silent. When I overheard them, Martin mentioned something else, something about someone who could be exposed if the truth came out. Nina said she couldn't let that happen, no matter what. Olivia leaned forward. Who was she protecting? Ned closed his eyes, the memory stabbing at him like a knife. She said she wasn't going to let the truth come out because it would destroy Willow. Lynn gasped. What? Why would Willow be involved in anything Nina's hiding? Ned opened his eyes again, anguish written across his face. That's the part one don't fully understand. But whatever Nina was hiding, it goes deeper than just her. She said if the truth got out, Willow would hate her forever. Tracy's lips tightened. Well, that certainly narrows it down. Nina's made a career out of giving Willow reasons to hate her. Ned nodded. I think Nina did something before Willow's bone marrow transplant. Something that she kept secret. Something she was terrified would come out at the wrong moment. Olivia shook her head slowly. Ned, this is huge. Ned gave a hollow laugh. You think I don't know that? Lois stepped closer. Honey, if Nina really kept something from Willow that big, you need to tell someone. You need to warn them. Ned looked exhausted. I can't just jump to conclusions. But I know what I heard. Martin told her the best way to keep it buried was to deflect suspicion. That if anyone got close to discovering her involvement, she had to find a distraction. Lynn frowned. A distraction like pointing the finger at someone else? Ned nodded grimly. Exactly. And I think that's why everything became such a mess with Carly. Nina knew that if she kept Carly busy with her own drama, Carly wouldn't look closely at anything else. Olivia let out a slow breath, her heart pounding. So what now? You tell Sunny? You tell Willow? You confront Nina? Ned shook his head weakly. Not yet. I need to remember the rest. I feel like there's something else, something I haven't fully pieced together. Tracy tapped her foot impatiently. Well, hurry up and remember, because we do not have the luxury of time with Nina Reeves running around town sitting on a secret about Sunny Corinthos. Ned's breathing grew uneven. There's one more thing, he whispered. The room stilled instantly. The night I fell. I wasn't alone out there. Lynn's eyes widened. What do you mean you weren't alone? Ned swallowed hard. Someone was watching me. Someone followed me to the terrace. Olivia stiffened. Who? Ned shook his head slowly. I didn't see their face. But I heard footsteps behind me right before everything went dark. Lynn's face paled. Dad, are you saying someone pushed you? Ned looked up at her, solemn and grim. Yes. I think someone did. The room was filled with stunned silence. Olivia reached for him, her voice trembling. Ned, someone tried to hurt you? Ned nodded. I think they knew I overheard Nina. I think they panicked. And they wanted to stop me before I could expose her. Tracy stepped back, shock overtaking her usual sharp tone. Someone attempted murder in this family, again. Lois swallowed, horrified. We need to get security. We need to get the police. Ned shook his head. Not yet. If we blow this open too soon, whoever pushed me will run. And Nina will deny everything. Olivia wiped her tears and steadied herself. Then what do we do? Ned reached for her hand again, voice hoarse but determined. We find proof, Liv. Proof of what Nina's hiding. Proof of who pushed me. And we do it quietly. Lynn leaned in, her voice fierce and emotional. We'll protect you, Dad. We'll help you. Ned closed his eyes, grateful but overwhelmed. This isn't just about me. Whatever Nina's hiding, it could shake everything in this town. The machine beside him beeped steadily as he opened his eyes once more. The truth will come out, he whispered. And when it does, everything will change.